Hey, what's up guys, my name is Cherno and welcome to the very first Sparky devlog. So, what are these devlogs all about? Well, I am making a game engine called Sparky and this is going to be a development log of my entire journey. Now, a bunch of the engine has already been made, right? So we're not starting from scratch or anything like that. But basically every single Monday, I'm going to be putting out one of these videos and all I'm going to cover is essentially what I've done in the past week and what I plan to do for the next week, right? Because these will be every week. So it's essentially just a way for you guys to see what I'm doing for the engine. It's a good way for me to be able to communicate with you guys and for you to give feedback and suggestions and all of that so that we can make this engine as good as we possibly can, right? So that's kind of the purpose of all of these logs, right? And also it's a great kind of thing to look back and actually document your journey throughout making something, right? And also for me to be able to reflect on the week and be like, I didn't have that much time to do this, but I should have, or maybe next week I should do more work, or all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's a really healthy thing to be able to essentially keep a video journal of a journey, right? Which is what this is all about. So this is the Sparky engine. The first thing you need to know about the Sparky engine is that it's open source, it's free. You can get it on github.com/thecherno/Sparky. This will be in the description below. The link to this, that is. So this is the entire engine, okay? Anything that has anything to do with the engine, okay, such as maybe future tools or anything like that, will be in this repository, okay? So you'll be able to download it, and you can just clone it or download a zip file, do whatever it is you need to do, and you will have all of the source code, okay? Now, a good way to just see what's going on with Sparky, like from this repository, if you click on the commits, you'll kind of see a log of everything that I've committed, right? So you can see that in the last week, I've done basically these 3 commits, right? I rewrote like the input system, did a bunch of stuff. This was actually quite a productive week, to be honest. You can see how much work has gone into this. Like if I look at these commits, like they're pretty huge as well. Like this one's like 65 changed files with like 1200 editions, and you can just see like this is pretty active, right? There's a lot of stuff here that happens, and whatnot, and that's kind of the overview of all the commits, right? So that's a great place to see exactly what has changed. And you can, of course, diff the files. If you click on this GUID, right, the globally unique identifier, right, which is just like an ID that identifies uniquely this commit, you'll be able to see all of this stuff. So this is everything that's changed in this commit, and you'll be able to kind of see all the additions and whatnot. So I'll kind of be going through them and showing you guys like new features that I've added and showing off like all the new fun stuff and whatnot in the engine as the weeks go on, and it should just be a really good time generally. So anyway, back to this. The issues as well is kind of a nice place. I might open some up myself when I start working on features and whatnot, but feel free to open up any issues here to do with like bugs and whatnot. You can see that like back when I was putting out like the Sparky series and whatnot, this was a lot more active, and we did actually close quite a bunch of issues, quite a lot of issues and whatnot, and yeah. But anyway, let's start with this. So once you check out the solution, the repository, you'll open up the solution file, which is just in here. If we go back to the code and we look at the root directory, there'll be sparky.sln, which is the Visual Studio solution. Currently, we're using Visual Studio 2015, so make sure you have that. You can get Visual Studio 2015 community for free, of course. But that's what I'm using right now. But the idea is that I'm probably not going to give you guys a tour of this entire thing because it'll take way too long. But basically in the solution, we've got like dependencies, which are all of the dependencies. These are projects that contain code that isn't mine, right? Just essentially libraries that I'm using, right? So you can see like these two are just our audio codecs, and like Gorilla Audio is our cross-platform audio thing, which actually compiles into a DLL, which is spaudio.dll, right? And SP just stands for Sparky, right? It's like a shortened version of Sparky, so that we don't have to write Sparky everywhere. You'll see this all throughout the engine. SP just means Sparky, right? It's like the code name, not really the code name, but like the initials, right? It's just the shortened version. So that compiles into that, and this is nicely cross-platform. Gorilla Audio just uses like X Audio or OpenAL. In fact, right now it's using OpenAL even on Windows. But anyway, that's like our audio stuff. You can see 60% of our dependencies are audio, which is, yeah. Then we've got Freetype, which actually includes both Freetype and Freetype GL. And Freetype, of course, is for font rendering. So essentially all the Freetype does is it takes in font files, right, like TTF files, and all it does is it reads them and it rasterizes them, right? So it reads all the glyphs and all the mathematical equations for all those vector graphics, and just rasterizes them into a bunch of pixels. And then Freetype GL takes those pixels and uploads them into OpenGL and packs them into a texture for us. So this is all about texture packing and whatnot. And all of that kind of gets converted into SP font, .dll. And then we've also got Box2D, which is our physics library for 2D stuff. This is not actually used anywhere in the engine yet. Haven't got around to that yet, but you can see that just compiles as a static library for now. And it does, all of this stuff compiles, like if I build it and whatnot, it'll be fine. But it's just not, that particular one isn't used yet, but those are kind of our dependencies. Under examples, we've got like Cherno, which is like a little Minecraft clone that I made, but this is like the Sparky version of it, the Sparky port. The reason that's unavailable and I've kind of unloaded that project is because like it doesn't work anymore because I broke the API of Sparky. So this was something that I added like ages ago, a few months ago, in fact, just to test out how that would kind of function under Sparky. And Sparky has developed like probably twice as much since then. So it doesn't really apply, and I'm not sure I want to have examples here. Examples was supposed to be for stuff like just like kind of mini kind of games that I made with Sparky, and that would be good for you to look at to see how certain things are made and how like I intend Sparky to be used, right? But all that stuff doesn't really matter too much here, right? Which is why I might actually remove that. So that's kind of the idea. In fact, I've got a modified version of this. So let me quickly just revert all my changes. Funny story. I was actually recording this log just earlier, and for some reason the audio was terrible. And I asked you guys on Twitter whether or not I should record it, and you guys said no, but I did anyway because I, only the best quality for you guys. So I'll have to revert all my changes so that we don't see what else I will demonstrate in this video. Anyway, that was kind of a bit of a teaser if you read any of the code there. Not that it was, particularly revealing, but anyway. I think that examples might belong in in a different repository, basically in a different solution, because I imagine that there might be like 10 of them or something, and I don't want that to be part of the main Sparky core solution. So I might actually end up removing that. Sandbox is like our testing kind of grounds. It's like our playground, right? This is what we use to actually like set up the engine and test it as if it was a game. So Sandbox is basically like a game. In fact, if you look at the properties for Sandbox, for example, you'll see that well, first of all, it compiles to an exe. But second of all, there's nothing special here in like the directories or in like the linker or anything like that, right? The only thing that it really does is it references this Sparky core project, which we'll get to in a minute. These two, so in Sandbox, you'll see like a bunch of tests, like this test 3D, for example, which is actually like if I run Sparky, if I just hit F5, Sandbox is what opens, right? It's set up as our startup project. So if we open it, if we run this and like a bit of time to compile for some reason, it's because I reverted the binaries. Lols. Okay, so you can see here that this is like this test 3D, for example, is something that we're looking at right now. Okay. Anyway, that's what we see here in the actual Sandbox project. Just like little tests, and it's like a game that we used to kind of quote unquote game that we use to test the engine basically while we're developing it. Sandbox CS and Sandbox CLI are both unloaded as well because I don't really apply anymore. So basically, Sandbox CS was basically like Sandbox but C#, right, instead of C++. And then the CLI was the bridge between, it was essentially all the CLI code between the Sparky core and between the C++ engine and the C# Sandbox, right? The reason I've stopped maintaining that ages ago because it's absolutely unreasonable to maintain like a wrapper for all the C++ classes because there are a lot in Sparky, right? And in fact, in any project really. So what I started doing was I started kind of writing my own tool, which automatically wrapped all of this stuff, right? And I called it like Sparky CLI Gen or CLI wrapper or something like that. But I haven't finished it yet. So basically what that would do is it would basically look through all the source files in the engine, and it would like take all the classes and all the methods, and it would like basically wrap them in this kind of CLI land, right? so that we could use it in C#, right? It would just use something like clang, for example, to pass all the C++ files and all the source code, so that it could extract all the classes, methods, all that stuff. And we need that so that we can actually use. That's pretty much the best way to be able to access C++ from C#, right? So that we get like all the objects kind of remain, and we can still use them as objects and all that stuff. So if we like take a look at what we had here, I think, yeah, we didn't get really far because like I started wrapping everything and I was like, this is going to take way too long. So I kind of just said, you know what, I'll just write a tool, because every time the API changes or anytime we add things, we'll need to maintain this wrapping thing, which is this CLI project, which would be awful. We want it to all happen auto-magically. But anyway, this C# sandbox, you can see like literally just made a new window and like just printed out the mouse position to the screen, and that was like it. So really it wasn't too exciting. But that's kind of what happened, and that really should get removed. I don't really want to remove it, but I just need the CLI thing to be automatically generated, so we'll see what happens with that. The reason I want C#, by the way, is for a few reasons. First of all the tools that are going to be Sparky, right? All the Sparky tools will be written in C# because, well, yeah, it's just, like especially the GUI tools, like the level editor, for example, that'll all be written in C# and probably WPF. For all the GUI applications, right? And since they want to be able to use Sparky Core, since they want to be able to use the engine, they need a link to the C++ code, which is why we need this CLI situation. But also, it's good if you just want to test something. Like, for example, if I want to like test a new shader or something, or like an effect, or I just want to put together like a quick game to demonstrate something, right? Doing it in C# is going to be a lot quicker and easier than C++, which is why it's really important to have something like that set up, and I really want to do that, but I just need to finish the tool. And I'll probably import everything I've done on the tool so far into this thing. I might have like another folder here or something called like tools or something for all of the engine tools. But anyway, that's basically all of that. Now, Sparky Core, the meat of everything. This is the actual engine. This is the core, right? The first thing you'll see here is a to-do list. This is a good place, actually. This is a good thing for you guys to look at so that you can see roughly what I'm working on, kind of, or what I should be working on, right? Anytime I'm working on Sparky and I kind of see something and I'm like, yeah, this needs to be done, I'll probably pop it to this list. And this list is kind of in a semi-correct order from like should do ASAP to not really. And this stuff doesn't really include major features, but nor does it really include minor kind of one-line code fixes, because usually I'll just leave a to-do comment on that line of code or something like that. This is kind of like, not too small but not too large things that I should do, right? So stuff like, some of this stuff is pretty trivial and pretty easy to do, like, for example, adding mat3 support for 3x3 matrices. That's pretty easy. That just involves making like a maths class. And there's like harder and more difficult things, like for example custom allocators and whatnot, and those are kind of larger tasks, right? But this is a nice list to kind of follow to see what we're doing basically. Okay, cool. So let's move on. Inside here we have the source folder, and I've set this to view, like I've set Sparky Core to view to show all files, so this is going to mimic the directory structure on Windows. The first thing you'll see inside the source is this sparky.h header file. This isn't actually part of the engine. Everything that's part of the engine is inside SP, right, Sparky. But this is actually a header file which contains every single other header file in the engine, right? So everything should be here. Now, not everything is, because I don't maintain this as well as I probably should. Like, for example, none of the UI stuff that I've added recently is in here at all. But basically, this is, first of all, a good way to see basically all the kind of header files that are in the engine, right? But also, it's great because if we go to something like test3D, something that isn't part of Sparky, like a game, for example, all that has to do is include sparky.h, and suddenly it's got the full engine, which is awesome. All right, cool. So that's that stuff, and yeah, I should maintain that better, of course, but that's the way that is. Inside the SP directory, we've got where do we begin? We've got stuff like string. So the way that this is set up, by the way, is that namespaces kind of reflect folders in a way, not like roughly, right? It's not always the case, but it kind of is. So you can see that if we're just in this SP folder and stuff like string is here, it's just under the SP namespace. If we go into something like audio and we look at sound, it's in SP. It's in like SP audio, right? it follows this it follows this this folder structure. Not always though. Stuff like app, everything in app doesn't actually belong in the app namespace. It's just kind of in the SP namespace, like Windows is as well, and so is like input, right? So it doesn't, like, app is probably the one of the things that doesn't apply, but yeah, mostly though it kind of is, right? So that's kind of the way that that works. And then this string stuff that we have right now, there are a few things that you should know about Sparky in terms of like types and whatnot. If you look at the typesetter file, for declarations that I never got around to actually doing, but these two are important. So we've only got 3 type defs in Sparky, I'm pretty sure, for actual like global types, right? And that is unsigned chars or bytes. So basically, if we refer to, whenever we refer in the engine to bytes, right, we're referring to unsigned chars. Which is pretty standard, and unsigned ints are just typed as uint, and they're used everywhere in the engine as uint just for convenience, okay? But anytime we're doing byte-related stuff, they'll be called bytes, and bytes, as you can see, are just unsigned chars, and that's also kind of for convenience, right? And also because it makes more sense, like, to be like, this is a byte of data, right? Cross-platform and whatnot may need to redefine some of these. I don't expect it will, especially not now, not in this day and age, but either way, this could be all modified and whatnot. Then we've got common. So common doesn't actually include anything. You can see it's just a bunch of definitions, really. So we've got stuff like warnings that we want to disable. We've got like, you know, defines for stuff like SP API and whatnot, because this whole thing compiles into a DLL. I'm probably not going to waste too much time going over this, because I can see that we're already at like 17 minutes or something. And this, I kind of want to keep this devlogs to around 20 minutes long. So I don't really want to give you guys a full engine tour right now. But if you guys would like me to put up a video where I go through like every single file and every single like nitpicky kind of project setup kind of properties thing and explain everything, then just leave a comment below. And maybe I'll make like one long, like an hour video, because it's going to take like an hour for me to go through all this. I mean, I'm barely started this stuff. Look at, like, if you go to graphics especially, like the amount of stuff is in here. It's pretty crazy. So if you guys want me to do like, you know, a kind of the Sparky grand tour, then just leave a comment below, and I will, if you guys want me to do it, I'll make a video just covering all of this stuff in detail. But basically, yeah, we've just got a bunch of defines here, like SP API, and then stuff like just a bit kind of thing. This is usually used for like enums and whatnot when you're defining values, so that you can kind of create a bit field. And then this stuff is used for, like, you know, binding methods, essentially, specifically binding member functions, right? So methods that belong to a specific instance and aren't static, because it's, like, these two parameters are always going to be the same. So it's kind of just an easier way of doing that, especially if you only got one parameter, like in this case. Anyway, this is all that kind of stuff. And then we've got the sp.h, which is the precompiled header. Just a bunch of stuff here, not really things that are in Sparky, a few things, yes, but not really Sparky stuff, just other stuff like STL and like a bunch of kind of library stuff that we continually reuse, and then sp.cvp is the actual precompiled header. And whatnot. Yeah, so this stuff is kind of set up this way. Again, I'm not going to go over this now. Leave a comment below if you want the tour video, and I will explain everything. So this is kind of the first devlog, so I'm also kind of at a loss as to what I should cover, because I kind of can't be like, this is what I did over the last week, because there was no devlog before this one. So it's like, well, what did I, you know, I kind of want to cover everything that Sparky is, but on the other hand, it's like, I don't want to make an hour video. So yeah, I probably will make that tour video that you guys should watch as well, because that'll cover everything that Sparky is in detail. And a lot of this stuff will make more sense, especially for week 2, I think. Anyway, let's roughly cover what I did this week, and we'll go from there. So, the big thing that I did, if we go to test 3D, I've kind of been working in test 3D. The big thing that I did was I made something, let's close all but this. If we look at test 3D, first of all, this is just like a simple test. There are 2 tests currently in Sparky, by the way. If we go into, a lot of people also ask me how to make games with Sparky, right? And whilst I don't really want to put out a video like immediately being like, this is how you make games, because the reason I've kind of been putting off doing that is because the API is changing all the time, right? We're so early in development here that I break Sparky's API continually, okay? because of that, if I put out a video telling you guys how to make a game, it will be completely just invalid, right? In a week, or like in a month. Probably not a week, but like in a month, right? So there's really no point in me doing that. However, if you are really keen to get into Sparky and start using it and start making games with it, and maybe even start reporting bugs with it and all that stuff, then you can take a look at Sandbox, because Sandbox is a great project that is essentially made for this, right? It shows you how it's kind of set up. There's a sandbox.cpp file, which has the main method. You can see that it just makes a game class instance, and the game class is right in there as well. So all you do is you make a class which extends application, which is a Sparky application. You give it like, you call the constructor with like a title, a width and a height. You init the application. This could probably be done implicitly as well. I should probably change that. And then like you push a layer onto like the layer stack, and then what happens is that layer, test 3D, you can see it's a 3D layer. It's layer 3D, and that has all your kind of event stuff and render stuff and whatnot. You can add stuff to the layer as well really easily there, and it just works pretty well. And you can see that like 3D layers, typically have like a 3D renderer and like a scene, for example. And there's all this kind of setup. So you can see we've also got one more layer. Apart from that kind of cube plane thing that you saw, there's also the test layer, which is just kind of this stuff. And you can see that we can toggle between rendering to a texture or rendering to the screen. And we can also enable stuff like post effects, which is one of the reasons you probably want to render to a buffer, for example. So we've got that stuff. This is just a simple horizontal blur here. And then I think we can probably display both of them at the same time as well. So this is an overlay versus a layer. Again, you would know that if you watch the tour video, which doesn't exist yet. Yeah, you can display both of them at the same time, as you can see, and we can blur and whatnot. So that looks pretty good, and you can do stuff like that. So we'll just comment out the test layer, which is just a 2D layer. If you look at it, by the way, it's just a 2D layer. So we've got like a 2D test, which is test layer, and we've got like a 3D test, which is kind of what I'm focusing on, since I'm kind of developing 3D stuff right now for the engine. So if we look at this in detail, let's cover what I did, okay? In fact, if we open up this and we look at the commits, then we can see that basically I rewrote the inputs. This was actually a while back. This was like 6 days ago. I did a bunch of stuff here. Yeah, just some graphical stuff and whatnot. Font Manager API, changed that. In fact, I think that all I did there was just add... yeah, wow, these commits are huge. So you can see how active this is. Pretty active. Which is why I want to do these devlogs. Here we go. So the font manager stuff, yeah, like I added the ability to get fonts based on like size alone. So you could request a font of a specific size. In fact, I'm pretty sure I use that here. Whereabouts do I use that? I would have used that in like the debug stuff that I'm about to show you guys. So anyway, basically, I'm focusing quite a bit on debugging things, right? Basically debug tools like for the engine, right? So inside the engine it's pretty typical of when we're developing a game or the engine, or usually I guess if you're just developing a game, you want to be able to adjust certain parameters in the game kind of on the fly. You don't want to have to, like, I don't know, recompile your code with like a bunch of changes or whatnot. You just want to be able to have like a little user interface which you can use to tweak certain values. For example, like, this cube, right? It'd be great if I could control its X position or something like that. Now, of course, you could do something like bind a bunch of keys on the keyboard to control that, but that's never fun. Like, that's never really, that's quite a difficult way of doing things, and it takes a lot of time. You just want a really quick way to be like, hey, I want to be able to modify this value, this one value or whatever, once, like, while the game's running. So that's a pretty typical thing that games like to do, right? So there are a few solutions to this. You could do something such as make like a console, right? So you could, like a lot of games do this, you can hit like the tilde key or the backtick key, and it'll open up like a little console, and you can type like commands in, right? And you can set like certain values and whatnot. And that's fine. I personally feel like it's a little bit awkward to use and just not as like efficient. So what I opted in for doing is basically making something called like a debug menu, right? And this debug menu is just it's like a menu filled with items that you can kind of control, right? In fact, it might be easy if I show you. So if you hit Control Tab, you can see that this kind of menu pops up, and this is very early days, right? I've only started this like this week basically, or last week. I've been working on this for like a week so far. So it's very, very early days, but you can see we've got like these menu items here. And what we can do is, it's really easy to add stuff to this. All you have to do is, in fact, it's just like one line of code. You can see this cube X thing, which controls the X transform for this cube. That's it, that one line of code, right? So we basically just add it to the debug menu. We give it a name, we set a memory address for what like the value is that we want to modify. In this case, it's X transform. And then of course, X transform on like in the onUpdate method just gets like set into the translation kind of thing, right? And then but instead of us having to constantly like change that, we can just kind of add it to the debug menu and then we can change it while the game's running. So the way that this works is once you open up the debug menu, you just click on this. You can see it brings up this slider. And I've set a range for it as well, -20 to +20. And then all I have to do is click and drag on this. And how cool is that? You can see that the cube moves, right? Pretty cool stuff. So you can just like, you can see how this cube kind of moves. How the X coordinate changes, right? And there's this other stuff here like font sizes, just like for the actual debug menu itself. So you can change like the font size. You can change the padding of the debug menu. So if we restart it here, you can see how that works. If I put it up to like 2 and restart it, we can kind of, you know, have padding or not. So there's a few parameters here that I of course will tweak, but you can see kind of how that works, right? We can just add something and tweak it, which is really cool. And the idea for this is that you want to be able to do this from anywhere in the code, right? So when you're making a game, you want to be able to just be like, hey, I want to add this value into the debug menu, and then I can play around with it just here, which is, yeah, really cool stuff. The reason I added this stuff as well is because I'm doing like 3D graphics work right now. So you can see I've started with this like 3D scene and whatnot, and I'm just about to do stuff like lighting and like, you know, entity systems and whatnot, and like scenes and like even like physically based rendering and like deferred rendering and all these massive things that require a lot of tweaking. So having like a menu like this where you can tweak stuff on the fly is really, really useful. Okay. In fact, debugging tools in general are just really useful. A lot of people neglect them, but I love working on debugging tools because it's just so important, right? It's really important. A lot of times when I'm working on a problem, I'll set up an environment like to debug it better first before I actually attempt to, you know, continue solving the problem, because it makes your life so much easier. And it even helps you like not, you know, it helps you avoid bugs and whatnot, because you can test a wide range of cases really quickly and whatnot. But anyway, that's kind of the way that works, right? This scene setup itself is just, you can see it's got like a Maya style camera where like if you hold down Alt and you press down on the left mouse button, you can rotate, and if you hold Alt and then press the middle mouse button, you can pan, and then the right mouse button and Alt will be zoom, right? Just like Maya. So you can kind of see how that works. And that is essentially the test 3D kind of situation, right? So with debug menus in mind, I had to, when I was making it as well, one of the things that I wanted to do was, obviously this stuff required like a lot of kind of UI, it required like buttons and whatnot. So I decided to actually make like this, and something's being printed there. Anyway, I decided to make like a whole UI framework, because Sparky didn't have any kind of UI stuff before. So I went ahead and did that, and you can see basically all that I did in, it's in graphics and then UI, right? So all this kind of stuff. We have like a panel where we add things to, and like we have like buttons and whatnot. You can see this is kind of all the stuff that I've done. And then we have like a slider. And widget is like a UI control, which just has everything. Anyway, I might go over this in like the engine tour video, but I ended up doing that because I wanted to do it properly, you know, and the debug menu is basically just one big chunk of UI. So so this is like a button, right? And then this is a slider and whatnot, and generally it works quite well, and I'm pretty happy with it. But anyway, let's take a look at some other things. So one usage of the debug menu, for example, would be like, let's say if we open our shader, our scene shader. Shaders in Sparky are all in one file, by the way. So like vertex, fragment, any other kind of shaders, they're all in one file. That's another thing I probably will cover in the engine tour video. But if we make like a uniform called like intensity or something, and we multiply our color by the intensity, right? If we were to set that, so if we go something like material.set uniform, so we called it u intensity, and we called, let's just set it to like, let's make a intensity 1.0. So if we set that up, whoa, that escalated quickly. Intensity, if we just set that up and we run it, we shouldn't see any change, right? Because nothing's really changed, yeah? But if we take it down to like 0.2 or something, yeah, we should see it be quite dark, right? So I want to tweak that, right? So how do I add it to the how do I add it to the debug menu, and how do I tweak it and whatnot? Well, glad you asked, because it's really simple. All you have to do is say debug menu add. You can see it's all static as well, so you can do it anywhere in the code. You give it a name such as intensity. We'll give it the memory address of a value, so intensity. And then we'll give it a range, so maybe like 0 to like 4 or something is probably a good range, right? And then this set uniform, of course, we'll have to put into like, you know, on update or something. So maybe I'll just leave it over here. In fact, we'll have to take out this material. There we go. Okay. So if we check that out, you can see that if I grab this and whatnot, you can see it's set to 0.2. I can kind of change it, as you can see, on the fly. How cool is that? Well, it's very bright. So you can see how you can kind of tweak stuff like that on the fly. And like in this case, it's affecting the entire scene, because you can see that all of these components, this like sphere and the cube and the plane and the ground plane, they're all based on this one material, right, which is this shader, and I'm modifying the entire material as uniform. So what I could do instead, if I wanted just the cube, for example, is I could use the material instance instead. So if I had, you know, I'll call it like cube material, and then I'll bring back our original material, and then I'll make sure that the cube material is, of course, that, right? So I've just refactored that. And then we'll take it and we'll only apply the uniform to the cube material, and we run that. Well, first of all, everything's going to be black, I just realized, because I didn't set the uniform for all the other objects, right? So we'll set intensity equal to, you know, just like 1 or something for all the other ones. Then you can see that just the cube is that intensity, yeah? And you can see you can kind of control that using that slider. So pretty cool stuff. I really like the debug menu. It's a really cool kind of thing to have around. I'll extend it a lot. Like for example, one of the problems right now is that if I add a, like if I changed this to be intensity or something like a long string, you'll see that this actually just spills out, right? Because I'm just, you know, the width is fixed right now. What I should be doing, obviously, if we had font metrics in the engine, which is actually on the to-do list, font metrics, we'd be able to measure, you know, the length of the largest string and then set that to be the width, like the largest like string in the entire like menu, and then set that to be the width, and we would do something like that, right? So I will do that in the future, and we'll probably also have stuff like directories, right? So like folders inside the debug menu, so you can specify something like you know, cubes like /intensity, and you'll be able to go into that to view certain properties, because once we add a million things to this, it's going to be very long, and we probably want, you know, the ability to scroll, and there's just all this stuff that needs to be added to this. But overall, I think it's a pretty cool little menu to have in the engine, and right now it works pretty well. So yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed this devlog. So how can you stay up to date with Sparky? How can you guys be more involved in Sparky? Well, first of all, I've actually got a Trello board, right, that I should talk about. So if you go over to, essentially, if you just go to like, I don't know why I opened Google. It's just like, it's literally just bit.ly/Sparky Trello, right? If you go to this URL, the link will be in the description. It will take you to this page, right, to this Trello board. And this is a good way to see kind of what I'm working on, right? And you guys can leave comments and whatnot here. I might have to adjust my permissions or something. But you guys can leave kind of comments here, and I'll be kind of, I was going to go through this list and triage it, but this devlog is just so long. We might do that next week. Anyway, and you guys can see kind of what I'm working on, what kind of I need to do, and you can kind of probably vote on features that you want done or leave comments on other features and whatnot. There's a lot of stuff that you could do here, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'll definitely change this permission to public so that you guys can leave comments on all this stuff, and you can kind of see kind of how that stuff is panning out, right? The GitHub page is also kind of important because like I'll probably start opening issues and whatnot there. So like, so that you can follow along with that as well, and I'll probably label them and whatnot. And of course the commits is a good way to stay up to date with what I've changed. But the best way, hands down, is simply to join Slack, right? So I've got a Slack team, right? And there's a channel in there called Sparky, okay? And this stuff is fantastic. There's like 47 people here, right? You guys can talk about how Sparky works. You know, if there's something in the engine you don't understand, or if you have a suggestion, you can just talk to people here. There's always people here. You can see I'm always here because like Slack is literally on my phone. So every time you guys like say something, I get like a notification basically, and I can, if I'm on like the tram to work or something, on the train to work, I can just respond straight away. And whatnot, and I'm always reading this stuff. So it's a really good place to hang out. But also, right, the other reason you want to join this is because you can see that there's actually like there's a GitHub bot here, yeah? So this guy, anytime I commit, anytime there's any activity in the repository, such as someone opens an issue or something, this guy will post here, okay? So it's a really good place to just, to be at so that you can essentially see kind of what's going on with that. So so I encourage all of you guys to join that. You can join that by just going to what is it? Slack.thecherno.com, right? And if you go to slack.thecherno.com, you'll be greeted with this thing where you can enter your email address, and basically you'll get an email with instructions on how to join this, right? Really, really simple. And I encourage you guys to get in here. I'm sure there'll be a lot more than 47 people here soon. Yeah, and it's a great place to be, right? The other thing is, if you guys enjoy my videos and you want to support me more, then I do have a Patreon account, patreon.com/thecherno. You guys can pledge a certain amount per month, and that will essentially just support the development of Sparky and support me making more videos and whatnot. Now, in terms of Sparky, you don't really get much, like you don't get anything, none of the rewards have anything to do with Sparky, right? For like $5 a month or more, you get access to like all the source code of game programming. But if you guys have any ideas for any kind of Sparky rewards, let me know. Maybe we can work this out and we can make it pretty awesome. Because I don't have, like, I don't know. I might have to start doing like t-shirts or something. I don't know what to do really. But I think some cool rewards for like Sparky-based things would be pretty awesome, and we can kind of work this thing out so that it benefits both you and me. But anyway, that's pretty much it. If you guys enjoyed this first devlog, make sure that you hit the like button. And leave a comment based on your thoughts and whatnot. I think I definitely will put out that that tour video, because there's so much, like I could go on for hours about all this stuff. There's so much in here. But I'm going to be working on this engine a lot this year. The goal basically is to have this game ready by like 2017, right? So by the end of the year, I want this to be game ready, meaning that you can make a 3D game with this. And a 2D game with this, right? Which is a pretty big goal, but I think I can get there, right? Especially with your support. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you guys next Monday with the next devlog. And this will happen every single Monday forever, pretty much. All right, guys, I'll see you later. Bye.